Okay, let's come back together again. So we're going to look at the third step in the case model now. So the first step was looking at the content descriptions and of the chronological age and deconstructing those. Step two was looking at the abilities of our students. So the strengths and barriers to learning for our whole class and then for individual learners. In step three, we're going to look at the achievement standards and we're going to deconstruct those. So this being the new graphic, once again, I prefer the old graphic. So we look at the achievement standards because that's what we're assessing the students along, but not just the achievement standard of the chronological age, because some students will demonstrate lower and some will demonstrate higher, and we'll have a look at how we can deconstruct that. So this is the statement from the ACARA website. Now let's have a look at the definition of what the achievement standards are. So the achievement standards are what students demonstrate. So content descriptors are what teachers teach, and the achievement standards are what students are required to demonstrate. So to deconstruct the achievement standards, we need to follow a number of steps. So we need to determine the chronological age achievement standards we're going to assess, highlight the key terminology and cognitive verbs, define them, further flesh them out by looking at the content descriptors and optional elaborations. Then we need to work out what the students need to demonstrate and not demonstrate in relation to the achievement standards. And I'll show you an example of what that actually means. Then create any scaffolds as appropriate. And then we start to think about individual learners and identify lower level or high level achievement standards and work out the difference between the chronological age and the targeted one. And we'll have a look at doing that together. So we're going to jump back to our Word document. I'm going to model it for you and then I'll get you to give it a go. So I'll bring my Word document up. So let's come back to, I'm going to focus on this, the achievement standard associated with this content descriptor, content descriptions, and another one. So I'm just going to go back to my Word, sorry, back to the Australian Curriculum version 9. And so we're going to focus on this one. So we're going to just copy and paste this across because we're going to deconstruct this achievement standard. I just want to actually focus on a second one to demonstrate how we can sometimes add unnecessary things. So I'm just going to take this one. They create written and or multimodal text. So first up, we need to highlight any key terminology or cognitive verbs. So read, view, comprehend text. And this confirms what we need to do. The text need to inform, influence, or engage audiences. Here we need to define create. Written or write. Multimodal text. So let's define read, view, comprehend. Well, obviously if I type properly, Hank, spelled correctly, and then create. Rather than written, it'll be write and multimodal text. So let's go to our glossary for English first. So read. Let's see. Note. Actually, I think that might be still the HP. Let's come to English. Let's check. There's the definition of read. to process words, symbols, or actions. Find the definition of view. So with purpose, understanding, and critical awareness. Interesting, if you have a look at the definition of view, some students participate in viewing activities by listening to an adult or peer describing the visual features, because think about a student with a visual impairment would not necessarily be able to view. We already have the definition of comprehend, so let's just take that from here as the definition of comprehension strategies. Let's find the definition of create, write, and multimodal text. Create. Develop and or produce spoken, written, or multimodal text in print and digital form. Write. Let's have a look at this definition of write. Plan, compose, edit, and publish text in print or digital form. Writing usually involves activities using pencils, pens, word process, drawings, models, photos to represent text, and or using scribe to record responses. So often when we think about the word write, we default into teachers thinking about handwriting, but it's actually quite a bit broader than that. So let's, rather than looking at this definition, let's watch a video from the Queensland Department of Education. It's about 2 years old now, on the definition of write in the Australian curriculum and how inclusive it is. So I'm just going to make this a bit bigger and we'll watch it.
The Australian curriculum is a curriculum for all students. It is an inclusive curriculum defined by its capacity to recognise and respond to the diversity of learners. So how can we support all students to access and demonstrate their learning against the achievement standards? The whole school approach to differentiated teaching and learning supports teachers to ensure success for all students. In order to remove potential barriers to learning, teachers need to have a deep understanding of the Australian curriculum achievement standards, including the key terms. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to start by looking at the glossaries for each learning area. The key terms are already defined in an inclusive way and consider diverse learners and their access needs. The key terms support teachers to plan differentiated teaching and learning. It's about looking at the curriculum through an inclusive lens of what our students can do. For example, if we look at the English glossary, the definition of the term write is inclusive of the different ways students can write. This means that when an aspect of the achievement standard requires a student to write, students can demonstrate this by using a scribe to transcribe a student's verbal or signed response, a braille device, sequence drawings or photos, such as a photo story, eye gaze technology and software, handwriting, speech-to-text assistive technology, or typing, which can include the use of spell check and word prediction.
So interestingly, when it says create written text, a student can do any of these things. How often in a school are these assumed to be adjustment? But in reality, if we come back to the definition of write, a student can do any of these things and be writing. So when we talk about what the achievement standards asking and not asking the student to do, it's not asking them only to handwrite. They could have a scribe, they could draw, put drawings or photos together in order. They could handwrite, they could use speech to text or type, or use braille or eye gaze technology and be writing.
Sometimes the key terms can be unintentionally interpreted in a way that creates barriers for learners. For example, writing can be misinterpreted as handwriting, but clearly that's not correct. Handwriting differs to writing. Handwriting is defined in the English glossary as the production of legible, correctly formed letters by hand or with the assistance of writing tools, for example, pencil grip or assistive technology. Unless handwriting itself is being assessed, which it may be, but only in Prep to Year 3 English, a student does not need to handwrite to demonstrate their writing or respond to assessment tasks in other learning areas using handwriting.
Interesting. So if the achievement standard doesn't say handwriting, a student doesn't have to handwrite to demonstrate the achievement standards. So outside of Prep to 3 English in version 8.4 and Prep to 4 English in version 9, students don't have to handwrite anything to demonstrate the achievement standard. So if you in high school, in secondary school, and make a student handwrite something and they can't, then you've added something that's not there. So let's come back. And we need to find the definition of multimodal text. So let's find the definition of multimodal text, and then we'll deconstruct the achievement standard. So let's find the definition of multimodal text, a combination of two or more modes, which might be writing or might not. So now let's have a look at this one. Read, view, comprehend text. So if we're going to deconstruct this, let's have a look at what students need to demonstrate and not demonstrate. So let's go need to demonstrate. Don't need to demonstrate. So they have to read or view. So read or view text created to inform. Read or view text created to influence. Read or view text created to engage audiences. So that's what they need to demonstrate. Coming back to the definition of read or view, they have to comprehend, so they have to use these strategies. Oh, let's get rid of those dot points. So that's what they need to demonstrate. What is interesting about this here, it doesn't say what they have to do. So it doesn't say they have to write anything, because it could be verbal. So there's a lot of things that we could put in here that students don't need to demonstrate. Because if we read through this, it doesn't say students read, view, and comprehend text created to inform, influence, and engage an audience and develop a written response. The students could verbally do this. So it's that important process of thinking about what the students need to demonstrate at a C standard versus what they don't need to do. It might be a bit easier to understand if we look at this one. So let's have a look here. So students create written and or multimodal text, including literary text. Let me just get rid of this stuff here so we can use this table again. So they create written or multimodal text, including literary text for different purposes and audiences, expressing and expanding on ideas with evidence. So let's have a look. Let's go to the definition of create, develop, and or produce something. So they have to develop and or produce a written text develop and or produce multimodal text. So let's have, so they could handwrite, they could type, they could use speech to text, they could have a scribe, they could put photos or images in order, they could have braille or eye gaze. So they have a choice of all those things. They don't have to handwrite, etc. So what's really important here is the definition of right is very broad in the Australian curriculum. It's not narrow. But if you tie it to only one approach and a student struggles with that, then it's going to become a bit of an issue. So the definition of multimodal text is more than one communication mode. So they create written and or multimodal. So they could create a multimodal without it actually including any writing. They have to develop literary text, have a purpose and audience, express ideas, expand on ideas, have evidence. So that's what they have to do. Then we can go through the things that they don't. Because those things that we add that don't are the things that then put up barriers to learning that don't exist. For example, in this one, there is no need to write, create anything. Here, by dictating the way that it's written, then we start to put up barriers to learning. It doesn't actually have to be written at all. Because if we have a look, and or it says it could be a multimodal text. So that idea that when we start to add things to our assessment that don't necessarily have to be there, or tying it to one thing, then we put up our barriers. So this is the chronological age or year level achievement standard. In the case model, it says you can go up and down. And in some systems or schools, that might be called an individual curriculum plan. So let's have a look here. They read, view, and comprehend text created to inform, influence, or engage audiences. What I want to do now is find a lower level achievement standard to show you how we can look at the differences. So let's go back to version 9. So we had year 7 English. Let's go English year 7 and let's go year 4. Just randomly choosing a year. So we've already got here, they read, view, and comprehend text. So let's choose the same achievement standard but for year 4. Sorry, I've got to hit unformative text. So let's put year 7. So this is year 7. Year 4. Okay, so we've got 2 different year levels now, because if we're going to provide personalized learning and with the case model, we need to be able to go up and down the achievement standards. Let's have a look at, just use another table, what's similar and what's different between these 2 achievement standards. Because if we just focus only on what's different, we're going to be doing a lot more work than we need to. So read, view, and comprehend text. So read, view, comprehend. Okay, so that's the same. have a look at the review and text to inform, text to influence, text to engage. Wow. If you have a look at the year 7 and the year 4, they have to demonstrate the same thing. Maybe it's just the text that you choose for the student that influences it. Notice what's different there? Nothing. So the assumption that the achievement standards change so much, not necessarily true. It might be a bit different on this next one. So let's have a look at this next one though. So this is year 7. Let's have a look at year 4, and then we might go even up a bit too. So let's here. At a table. Actually, just copy and paste this one in. Well, let's have a look at what's similar and what's different here. So they create written and or multi. So create is the same. Written, multimodal is the same. So including literary text for different purposes and audiences, including stories for purposes and audiences. So literary text, year 7. Stories, year 4. So stories for purposes and audiences, literary text for different purposes and audiences. So expressing and expanding on ideas with evidence, expressing, expanding ideas with evidence. Let's have a look. Where they develop ideas using details. Develop ideas using details and topics. So let's have a look at this one. So this is a bit of a better example. So what is similar? Oh, sorry. Let's put here. Similar, different. So what is similar between the year 7 and year 4 is they create written or multimodal. What is different? Literary text for different purposes for year 7, expressing, expanding ideas with evidence. Whereas in years 4, they only have to develop stories for purpose and audience, develop ideas using details. So there is different, but when we focus, identify the similar differences between them, it's easier to provide that personalized learning, because when students are working on individually, and most of the students are working on year 7, another student might be working on against the year 4 achievement standards, and that's what they're focused on. But if we don't do this, we start to overcomplicate it because we think, oh, wow, we've got students who are demonstrating at different levels, and then we start adding things. Let's go the other way. Let's go up higher too. So let's go back to our achievement standards. So let's keep year 7, but let's go up to year 9. So they read, view, and comprehend text, create exactly the same achievement standard again. Interestingly enough, what the students have to demonstrate is the same, but it's obviously going to be a higher level text. So in that case, it's the text that you choose that's going to differentiate for different year levels. but it's the same skills that you're going to be modeling. Let's have a look at this one. Oh. They create written or multimodal text, including literary text for different purposes and audience. So that's exactly the same as the 7, expressing and expanding on ideas with evidence. Wow. Did I just, oh, sorry, I just copied the same one. Sorry, guys. Oh, let's not actually, let's do it properly this time. I apologize. So let's come back to here. All right, they create written and or multimodal text, so the same, including literary text for a range of purposes and audiences. So at the moment, this is the same instead of different. It's a range, expressing and expanding on ideas. So that's the same here, shaping meaning and providing substantiation. So there are slight changes there, but if we focus on the achievement standards being totally different, then it's harder to provide personalized learning than if we look for what are the similarities. So then we just focus on the little bit of the differences.